The library at Workman was not especially spacious, but it was clearly a library, not a Kimptonian instructional resource center. The head librarian was one of those school employees you just knew had been there since brick one of construction. We called her the mole lady behind her back, but as deaf as she was, I'm sure we could have bypassed the pretense altogether. The standard procedure for checking out a book from the Workman library was to fill out a card with the student's name and hand it over to the librarian or her assistant for date stamping. This system should have worked well, except for the inevitable stowbilly factor. A number of students would put a much different name on the card, from Haywood Jablome to Ben Dover. This would usually amount to a whole lot of nothing, since the books would be returned on time anyway, and the name used on the card didn't really matter to the circulation assistant. However, this flaw in the system did backfire spectacularly one day during study hall in the cafeteria. The mole lady herself came down from the library, which by Workman hallway standards probably took most of the morning, then approached one of the study hall monitors. She held a book card in one trembling hand and in her inimitable craggy voice said, "Attention students, attention. We have an overdue book situation. Would Mr. John please report to the library? Mr. Elton John?" We were all stunned. We didn't know whether to laugh or cry. She was completely sincere and completely unaware that Elton John was a British singer-songwriter who had graduated years ago. Finally, someone shouted from the back of the room, "Elton's not here today, ma'am. He's on tour with Peter Frampton." Without missing a beat, the mole lady said, "Well, would you please tell Mr. John to see me in the library when he gets back? It's very important that I speak with him." And then she was gone. The original section of Workman was clearly built during a different time than my own. There were secrets around every corner, and most of them were inspired by the Red Menace scare of the 1950s. The small gym in the basement, which my predecessors often used as a makeshift dance hall during lunch, also served as an official atomic bomb shelter. A storage room connected to the gym still contained the remnants of emergency food supplies from the 1950s. There was also a tunnel which led from that storage room to the basement of the City Hall building. The City Hall building also had the iconic civil defense shelter signs from the blissful duck and cover days. Considering the size of the student population at Workman and the capacity of the underground gym and bunker, there may have been a discussion or two in the day about who would get to enjoy the emergency rations and who would be toast during an actual atomic event. The restrooms at Workman varied in overall quality and usability. The showers in the locker rooms were legendarily bad, followed closely by the student restrooms by the north entrance. In an effort to thwart smokers, the doors to each stall had been removed, which was not as much of a deal-breaker on the boys' side as it was for the girls' side. Our assistant principal would periodically receive reports of illicit smoking in the girls' room and throw a bucket of water through the front entrance. His actual smoker to poor girl just trying to brush her hair before class ratio was pretty abysmal, however. Other restrooms were much better, and the ones in the teachers' lounges were the best of all. This may explain why so many teachers went into apoplectic fits whenever a student wandered into the lounge by mistake. They were zealously protecting their pristine bathroom stalls, replete with working doors and abundant ashtrays. They say all barely adequate but legally sufficient things must pass, and the Workman building was no exception. After the new 9th through 12th grade, Stowe Munroe Falls High School became operational during the late 80s, the Workman building was generally abandoned. It would eventually be torn down, and the land would be converted for retail use. Many young Stowites would never guess an entire high school once stood on the property where Marks is today. Many older Stowbillies, however, still remember running laps around the field behind the building, walking down to the public library after school, or hanging out at Eddie's bike shop or the Lawson's parking lot. The Workman building and its surprisingly good cafeteria may be gone, but many of us will miss that old Skinner box and its promise of better cheese to come.